Passion public service announcement. When you want somebody to aggrandize you, laud you, praise you, uplift and uphold you in ways you are undeserving, your desire for the respect and admiration will never supersede the truth that you are neither respected nor admired in that way. You can beat someone into a trained response, but it will never be because they finally see you the way you want to be seen. It will only and always and only be a survival response. I love you and I'm trying to survive you are not the same. If you want someone to love you as you are, if you're a failure, then you want to be loved through your failure. If you want to be admired for your greatness, you have to be great. And not just great to you or in your opinion. You have to be great to the person from whom you'd like to demand said admiration. You have no right to be violent towards anyone because you want them to see you as better than you are. You have a right to evolve and become better, and you have a right to leave, but you have no right to kill their spirit or their body to make you feel better about the fact that they see your shortcomings or inadequacies. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something.
So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast.
Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionate newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to a different kind of episode of the Passion PSA podcast where I, passion no last necessary, your get you right guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have previously considered to A, expand your thinking, and B, aid you in becoming a better version of yourself, for yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I'll never rob you of your right to feel what you feel. Same way I won't sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so you can operate as your highest and best self. No affirmations today. Let's get right into it. Also, this isn't a review. This is a full analysis of this movie. So if you haven't seen it, this whole episode is one big spoiler, okay? Watch at your own risk. Now, when I sat down to compose this, I thought it would be a think piece that I would maybe use as an inaugural article for a Substack. And as I was writing it, I didn't feel like it was making sense the way I wanted it to. So a page and a half in, I went back to do what I do best. I don't discuss pop culture, but I do share my takeaways. And I'm assuming you saw it because it was 1,000% a worthwhile watch, but in the off chance that you didn't. The story of Is God is about young women twins who were orphaned and have no knowledge of what happened to their parents or why they have burn scars. Anaya's face and her chest are badly burned. She's the more reserved twin. Racine, the bolder twin and Anaya's fierce defender, has burns on her arm and some of her fingers are disfigured. They receive a letter from their mother that they had assumed was dead, who is now on her deathbed, requesting that they come see her. And when they arrive, after telling them why she stayed away all this time and why they're all so badly disfigured, she sends them on a quest to find and kill the person responsible, who was their father. Their first stop is Divine, who was his girlfriend while he was on trial. She has also bore a son for him, and 20 or so years later, she's still carrying a torch for him, waiting for him to return, and has built a shrine in his honor to preserve his memory. She's a trip. Their stop with her leads them to his trial defense attorney, who tries to warn them against finding him. Now, he gives them the best alternatives he can come up with, and he even describes the violence that he suffered at the hands of this man. They don't heed him, but they do take note of the fact that their father has since married again and now has 2 more sons, also twins. When they encounter the second wife, because remember, Divine was the girlfriend, but he never married her. When they encounter Angie, she doesn't give them empathy or support. She is doing everything to get away and feels like they're just standing between her and her chance at freedom. So she's looking for empathy from them, that she'll never get. Now, it builds to disrespect and ultimately does not go well for Angie. Then they meet their half-brothers. They get dealt with, most unfortunately, as well. Ultimately, the final showdown occurs with Monster, their father, and the mission is accomplished. That's the synopsis without spoilers or giving any more than the trailers. Any spoilers from here? Again, it needed to be said to make sense with the takeaway. Okay. First, I thought the concept was dope. It was inspired by Greek tragedy and very much gave that with elements like the chorus of the hair braiders, braiding Ruby, the twins' mother, also referred to as God, braiding her hair, to the odyssey that the twins went on to kill their father and the ultimate price of revenge. I think that's where I want to start, as opposed to going through it chapter by chapter or scene by scene, because this movie had so much foreshadowing and so much look back. So whether you saw the movie or just the trailer, you definitely heard the line, "Make your daddy dead." Now, if you didn't see the movie, you didn't hear Ruby say, "Kill the spirit, then the body," like he did me. I felt like every stop they made, they killed the spirit of Monster until they ultimately reached him. He left his spirit or his essence wherever he went. That spirit of him continued to impact the people literally decades later, as though he had been there minutes in the past. So while Ruby may have been telling them to break him down first, mentally, emotionally, him specifically, every stop they made was a stop to kill the spirit or the energy that still resided in those places. At the final destination, the spirit didn't just have to be killed in theory, but in the people there, because it had seeped into them in one way or other. The twist was that the spirit didn't just live everywhere else. It also lived in Racine, and she ultimately died as well. Kill the spirit, then the body, like he did me. Mission accomplished, including the spirit of him that lived in the daughter that was most eager to accept the assignment, and her body. Same way he died. Passion point. Sometimes getting something out of your life requires getting something out of yourself. And sometimes the only way to fully expel a thing is in death. So if death isn't the best option, it is imperative to master and control the thing so it doesn't consume and kill you. I also think Ruby knew that when she reached out to them to send them on the mission. As soon as they entered the room, she addressed the concerns that Anaya had prior to their arrival and even made an assessment of Anaya that even Racine didn't catch until much later, even though they did everything together, including sleep, eat, and even use the bathroom. I felt like that spoke to their twin telepathy being generational psychic ability, either in addition to or more so than their twin telepathy. And that tracks because there are Southern goth themes that run through this production as well. I think Ruby knew in her spirit that the violence that lived in Monster lived in Racine, and knew that also needed to be dealt with. So to that same passion point, sometimes the mission is explained as single fold, but it is indeed many-fold. So you might think you're going to do one thing, right? But you'll find out the ultimate purpose at the very end. Hindsight is 20/20, right? Also, you might think you're on a hero's mission, but it is indeed a suicide mission because you may be the one to be sacrificed for the greater good. Like, what if Racine had to die in order for Anaya to really stand on her own? And that tracks with the conversation Anaya has with Dev, but we're not there yet. Dev is one of the twins. But we can only feel but so bad for Racine because she knew that she had Monster in her. She was taken aback when Chuck, that's Monster's defense attorney, when he said that he could see her father in her eyes. But I wonder if that shock was that he said that, or shocked that he was able to discern something that she thought she was masking. Because when Anaya said, "We ain't no killers," Racine stated definitively, "I am." So she knew, and so did her mother. And speaking of masks, I think the dresses they wore when they went to see their mother were another type of mask. The dresses implied they were the sweet little girls that she last knew, but those black Air Force Ones said they were with all the shenanigery anyone wanted to bring their way. And I wonder if Anaya's name being spelled so drastically wrong was an indication that in her spirit, Ruby really knew and sent for Racine. You get what I'm saying? You're both welcome here, but you're the one I really want. Yeah, you're not going to convince me that it wasn't a suicide mission. Racine thought of Ruby as God, and God is all-knowing, so God would know the outcome of a thing before it plays out and has designated parties to carry out specific jobs for specific and intentional reasons. let me keep unpacking, because as you can see, this film sent me home with a 12-piece luggage set, okay? And I'm over here just opening the wristlet. So now, I mentioned Chuck a few minutes ago, and I'm going to come back to him, but I want to spend some time on Devon first. I love that after Monster commits as heinous an act as setting his family on fire, the next person that he takes company with is called Devon. I feel like only divine grace and divine covering could allow a man to do something that extreme and get off, which would provide him a chance at redemption. And no, we are not here to debate if God is real or if God is good, then why would he let such a horrible thing happen? Because if you can accept that everyone has free will, then you can accept that free will doesn't mean you were allowed to do the thing necessarily. It means you were allowed to choose whether you would do the thing or not. Also, the name of the movie is God Is. For me, it's a question and a statement. Is God? God is. Or is the question, is God is? Meaning, is God real? Does God exist? And I've watched a lot of commentary on the movie, and I have seen some from the author of the original play and who is ultimately the director of the movie. But that's for you to go do your own research, okay? And after you do that research, please feel free to share your findings in the comments, please and thank you. Back to it. Divine is the last person Ruby knew that he was with. So that was their first stop. And they found her preaching at the Holy House of the Conqueror, which for me, again, is completely apropos because Divine has been completely conquered by Monster. And while she has her own divine availabilities, she has her own divine abilities as witnessed by the behavior of her congregation, she's spellbound by Monster and can't or doesn't want to break that stronghold. Rather, she embraces it so tightly. At this point, it makes you question if the proverbial candle that she's keeping lit for Monster is propping her up more than her faith. He left her when she was pregnant with her now grown son, and her son's spirit of Monster is revealed when he chases the twins down at the idea that they may at the idea that they may harm his father. Ezekiel, that's her son, was proud and firm when he said, "That's my daddy." They never stated their intentions to Divine or Ezekiel. They only revealed that they were looking for him. But again, Divine knowing of the mother, Divine knew they would do him harm if they found him. And Ezekiel, who was abandoned while in the womb, went running after them to stop them, screaming things like, "My daddy, the man who made me." Like his half-sister's God complex about her mother, he had a God complex about his father. And that all goes back to whatever Devon told him. And we know she had to have had, what did I just say? We know that she had to have said some things, some amazing things. The lady had built a whole shrine to him, okay? And she told the girls to tell him the church was his and Divine was still there wearing all white, waiting for him just like she promised. Now, while Devon on the surface seems like just a pit stop on the way to their ultimate destination, that's a repeating theme for her. She was just a pit stop on the way to something more for Monster and just a pit stop on the way to something more for the twins. I also think it's important that Divine was the only woman of the three who had children for him that wasn't trying to get away from him. My question is that because he never married her, so he never directly introduced her to his violent side, or because she genuinely believed that she could fix whatever was broken within him? Because she mused to the twins, he was so broken, it was all he could do to get up in the morning. But when asked about his whereabouts, she said she didn't know and then asked, "Where do all the good men go?" And while it seems wild that she would say that about someone who was on trial for setting his wife and children on fire, a wife who never actually died and who no one mentioned anything about ever legally divorcing, we have to go back to what Ruby said about him and how he was able to disarm, then harm her in the first place. He do got a tender side. Men like your daddy always got a tender side. That statement was delivered wistfully, just like Divine quipping about where the good men go. But for as wistful as it may have been, it was a warning for the twins and a passion point for y'all. Abusers have soft and tender ways too. Abusers, period. Not physical abusers, not financial abusers. All people who are abusive have tender ways and tender sides. They're not always monsters. Or maybe they are always monsters, but they're not always scary. The point is, be careful who you let your guard down for, and don't be so quick to be disarmed just because someone appears to be what you're looking for. You saw Sinners, right? Once you invite them in, that's their permission to kill you. All right, I think I'm through the handbag and the toiletry bag now, y'all. So let's talk about Chuck. The twins get to his office. They hear craziness going on inside. They don't know what they're walking into. So Racine tells Anaya to give her sock. Time out though, because why she couldn't take off her own sock? That part, it refuses to leave me alone. But anyway, she tells Anaya to take off her sock, and she puts a broken piece of rubble from that tire blocker thingy in parking spaces. And that rock in a sock remains the weapon of choice for the remainder of this mission. And for me, it was giving David and Goliath. Even though for David, it was a slingshot, but it was still a rock used to defeat a giant that no one else could slay. Now, Chuck ultimately points them in the direction of where to find Monster, but only after repeated warning and suggestion that they leave him and this crusade alone. He said, careful with vengeance, you don't know where the blood will land. Passion point. Being fixated on an end goal can cause you to disregard sage wisdom and overlook glaring clues. They watched Chuck's commercial. He was speaking. But once they made contact with him, he immediately and continuously communicated via whiteboard. Why didn't they realize that an attorney who needs to speak to represent a client doesn't speak at all? Why did he have to explain that their father ripped his tongue out in order for them to see what was right in front of them? And for all those whose complaint was that this movie depicts black men in a bad light, it's very evident that y'all didn't watch, because while yes, Monster is a black man, Chuck, who is the voice of reason, the soundless voice of reason, like your intuition or that voice you and only you hear guiding and directing you, i.e. God, Chuck was also a black man. Chuck was the compass for Monster and the twins, giving them the option and the suggestion to go in a different direction than they desired. Neither listened. But to the point of how this paints black men, a few dialogue changes and replace the cast with all white actors, this is no longer a story about an abusive black man. Instead, it becomes a story of an abuser and the damage that he does to everyone with whom he engages. So if you still have an issue, you might be a sympathizer for abusive men. You might also be an abusive man. And that's for you and a therapist to work on, not a playwright turned screen adapter and film director to write new scripts so you don't have to look at your ugliness on screen. And another passion point, seeing yourself in a story doesn't make the story about you. This is a story about vengeance and what happens when you pursue it eagerly and actively. If you feel like you could end up on the detrimental end of someone's vengeance because you know you a fudge boy or you know you did some fudgery, well, that's on you. While Monster is central to this story isn't actually about him at all. Don't make yourself the main character of someone else's story. Okay, let's spend a little more time with the twins, because after they leave Chuck, the focus is on them and their personal and conjoined journeys, right? Anaya agreed to go along with this mission because she's never going to leave her sister's side, but she's really not with it at all. From before they left Ruby, Anaya was expressing her discomfort, while Racine was getting more and more excited, saying things like, this destiny type shit. I thought that imagery of Racine talking to Anaya from the back seat was like the devil on her shoulder manipulating and convincing her that this was a righteous act ordained by God. Love that. And throughout this journey, Racine often had to use aggressive manipulation to get Anaya back on board. But even from the time Racine is talking to Anaya from the back seat, you can see the bloodthirst in her eyes. And you never really see it settle or subside until she's drawn a little more blood. That's what Chuck saw in her eyes. That's what her mother saw in her eyes. The bathroom break and the motorcyclist that destroyed their car that came after them with a hammer, and once again, the only immediately available weapon being rocks, was apropos. Ezekiel, being the motorcyclist, is wild, but it makes all the sense when you think about the fact that 3 times his sisters took something from him related to his father. First, they took away the facade that he's a great man. Then they took from his mother's hope that one day he would return by pointing out he hadn't come back once yet in at least 20 years. And he left her when she was pregnant. And they took one of his belongings from her shrine. They stole from his God. He couldn't have that. Fortunately, they narrowly escaped him. Otherwise, the part of his father that's in all of them would have fully emerged. Passion point. Everyone has a breaking point, and a lot of people don't know what they're capable of until they're doing it, whether it's good or bad. Some people don't know they can survive their deepest heartache until they survive it and somehow keep going. Some people don't know they can kill until they're covered in blood. We spend a lot of time talking about how long it takes to get to know someone else, when in truth, half of us don't know ourselves because we've never been pushed far enough. Rewind what I just said. Listen to it again and think about it, okay? Arriving to their destination, they see the other twins and their mother. They see everything is the polar opposite of the life they had. They've bounced around from foster home to foster home without even knowledge that their parents were still alive. They've been made fun of for their disfigurations. They've struggled through life. And now they've arrived at a beautiful house with handsome, flawless-skinned twin boys, a gorgeous wife, a family, a life that was never afforded them. And on the inside, nobody is happy. And I was just talking to someone recently who was kind of joking, kind of not, saying they wish they could find a sugar daddy and live a soft life because they were tired of working, right? And I told them some of those kept women are living a financed life, but it's not necessarily as soft as it may appear. They're not doing the labor-intensive work that you're doing, but playing the role is a whole other kind of work. Passion point. Emotional and mental work can be just as hard as physical work, especially when you're doing it for someone you hate but can't escape. Angie is beautiful and has fine wares, to be sure, but she's living like a servant, and the flashbacks that she has when thinking of the consequences of anything being even slightly imperfect has pushed her to the edge, and she's making her break for it today. But not before marking the whole room like a dog. Like, I got you clean to perfection. Because Angie has scars too, but hers aren't visible. Hers don't make her a target for regular public humiliation, and they don't make her any more empathetic to the twins' external and internal scars when she comes face to face with them. So first, she sees them from a distance. They're literally sitting in the middle of the road to her freedom. Initially, she asks them to move. Then she tries to shoo them out of the road like they're deer or bunnies. When she finally gets out of the car and close enough to engage and they let her know who they are, her first question is, "You're alive?" But that confusion is questionable to me because she immediately says, "He said you got burnt up in some fire and that he didn't have to pay child support." Miss Lady Ma'am, why would he have to pay child support for dead children? Like, either what kind of stupid or enamored were you that he said that and that made sense to you? And when Angie and the twins started going back and forth because the twins were not having it with the "I'm a victim too and I'm trying to run for my life" narrative, Angie lost control. Remember, monster spirit permeates everyone he's around too long. So it goes from,
"You have no idea what he's done to me or what he'll do to me if I'm here when he gets back,"
to talking crazy about their mother, hollering about that's why their weak ass, ghetto ass, trash mama got burnt. She should have left. She should have left. And then she did the unspeakable. Now, I was amazed that she didn't die right there, okay? Because I thought Racine would have immediately snapped. So the fact that she didn't immediately wall out is confirmation that she did have some self-control. But what amazed me more was Angie being so brazen as to say, a woman that knows her worth will leave. Meanwhile, when Monster burnt up Ruby and her kids, Ruby had an order of protection against him, and those girls were no more than 5 years old, if that. Angie felt empowered enough to make such a bold claim about a self-respecting woman would have left, and her twins are probably 18 years old. She ain't made it off the property yet. Now, ain't that the black coal in the kettle pot? That's an All in the Family reference. If you know, you know. Anyway, Angie gets dealt with by Racine, who feels like Angie was just collateral damage and that as long as Anaya's hands didn't have blood on them, all was well. But that self-satisfied, endorphin-filled look of peace on Racine's face after she beat Angie to death, again, very monster-coded. Okay. Now they come face to face with their twin brothers, Scotch and Deb. Scotch immediately thinks they're strippers and a birthday gift from their father. Deb is like, yeah, nah, I don't think that's it. And why are you letting random strangers in the house? Scotch golds Dev into agreeing to invite friends over to watch the strippers perform. I think it's interesting that Scotch doesn't see Anaya's face or care anything about how her face looks until after his friend nudges him and specifically points it out. And it was sad because it was right when Anaya looked like she was enjoying herself. Like, yeah, they're doing this with ulterior motive. I'm talking about Anaya and Racine dancing. They are doing this with ulterior motive, but for once, no one made her feel ugly. Like, she was just about to get into the dancing when Scotch told her that she had to turn around and dance with her back to them. And she took off running, and of course, the crazy switch was flipped for Racine, so we know Scotch is next to be eliminated. But before it happens, and while Racine is luring Scotch in, Anaya's in the kitchen talking to Dev. Now, remember when I said that Racine dying tracks with what Anaya said to Dev? She asked him if he ever felt like being different gave his brother permission to be himself. Because Racine using the excuse that someone called Anaya ugly was always the permission to draw their blood from the time they were children. She and Monster were almost one and the same. Their actions were wild and detrimental, but they always felt justified, never apologetic or regretful. That's what they all could see that Racine tried to hide. Chuck saw it, Divine saw it, Ruby saw it. Anaya finally couldn't not see it on their cross-country journey. She always saw it, but she never paid attention to it until it started to get out of control. Anyway, Racine sends Scotch out to die in front of his friends so anyone else who has something to say could see what the consequences would be if they got vocal same way. The commotion of them running out the house sends Dev running in to see his brother dying, then dead on the floor. I think some would assume that Dev laughing, like that laughing, crying reaction was shock, but I think it was exactly what it looked like. He was crying because his twin was dead and laughing because his own stupidity got him killed. Anaya's furious because Racine promised that the only blood that would be shed after Angie's was Monster, but I feel like Racine got her on a technicality because Scotch is Monster's son, so technically Monster's blood was shed, right? Racine don't care one way or another because the beast has been unleashed and she has another valid justification. She has to kill Dev now because he'll tell if she doesn't. Anaya isn't there for any of that, so she tells Dev to run. And I think when he thanked her, it wasn't for saving his life. I think they had a telepathic sibling moment, and when she told Dev what they were there for telepathically, I think that information brought his inner monster out, because why try to kill a person that's trying to spare your life? I also think that when he said, I don't care what he did, he was talking about Monster and not Scotch. Ultimately, Dev loses the fight when Naya stabs him with the weed whacker and he falls in the pool and drowns. Monster returns. His composure, not only seeing both his children dead, but seeing how bloody the scene is, tells you that this man is a psychopath, devoid of conscience or emotion. The fact that he knew Anaya was hiding under the table tells me he also knew how close he was to either of their heads, and so not stomping them to death was deliberate. The whole thing was a game to him. So when he finally saw Anaya, him saying, well, you ain't a complete monster. That's something. Yeah, he was talking about her appearance, but I think he was also talking about her spirit. I think he had a bit of that intuition as well. His responses as to why he set Ruby on fire, I sat for about 10 minutes trying to find the words to describe them, but there was nothing I could come up with that was encapsulating enough to do it justice. The thing that came up for me was how many grandmothers specifically, because we know it's single mothers, childless women, elders, aunties, young women, but the grandmothers came through for me. How many of them have had to have jaws reset, stayed inside until the black eye went away? How many lost sight in an eye, lost hearing in an ear, have had countless broken bones, have limps, have chronic pain or chronic illness, only bore one child because the reproductivity was beaten out of them and the because for the why was
Because she wouldn't let me hold her.
The because for the why was,
She could have let me stand up in my house. I needed that.
how many women have paid with their lives and those were the justifications? Passion public service announcement. When you want somebody to aggrandize you, laud you, praise you, uplift and uphold you in ways you are undeserving, your desire for the respect and admiration will never supersede the truth that you are neither respected nor admired in that way. You can beat someone into a trained response, but it will never be because they finally see you the way you want to be seen. It will only and always and only be a survival response. I love you and I'm trying to survive you are not the same. If you want someone to love you as you are, if you're a failure, then you want to be loved through your failure. If you want to be admired for your greatness, you have to be great. And not just great to you or in your opinion. You have to be great to the person from whom you'd like to demand said admiration. You have no right to be violent towards anyone because you want them to see you as better than you are. You have a right to evolve and become better, and you have a right to leave, but you have no right to kill their spirit or their body to make you feel better about the fact that they see your shortcomings or inadequacies. I don't know if it's Wilder that he felt it was a perfectly appropriate response for a young man out of control, or that to him, the whole situation was just a blemish that he couldn't get rid of. Passionates, you ever have someone show you something and ask you if you see it and you don't really see it, but you kind of play along like, yeah, I think so. Ride with me through this next statement, okay? I feel like when Anaya was trying to reclaim her power and telling him how she was going forward with her life, the remorse, the love, second chance deserving father that she was desperately searching for in his eyes but not seeing, but telling herself she was seeing or believing she was seeing, is what she told herself she was definitely seeing in that tear that he let fall. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like I think I see it. Like it was that. Unfortunately, it was manipulation. And now we can finally talk about the foreshadowing that I was alluding to from the beginning. Remember Ruby said, he do got a tender side. Men like your daddy always got a tender side. That's how he got Ruby in the first place. That's how he got Ruby to lower her guard when he appeared in the house the night of the fire. That's what has kept Divine waiting patiently for 20 some odd years. And that's what gets Naya to take his hand and allow him to lead her to the couch. The tear, the touch, the acknowledgement that she may be the only one to bear another descendant for him, the adamantly swearing that he had nothing to do with them getting burned, that it was their mother who grabbed them and caused their injuries. While simultaneously overlooking that even if that was the case, he didn't try to save them or come back for them. All that tenderness to culminate in being grabbed by a face that her father was responsible for being burned and being called a dog bitch. All that manipulation just to show how easy it is to play on somebody's heartstrings once you know their vulnerability. That man told her not just to her face, but centimeters from her face, go back to that heaving corpse and tell her I'd do it all again. And now you still can't kill him. But Racine was going to see to it that that man died even if she had to come back from the dead. Even if she had to come back from the dead to make it happen. You hear me? But in his final act of psychopathy and hatefulness, he drags Racine into the fire with him and they die together. Kill the spirit, then the body. Mission accomplished. Now remember when I said there was a lot of foreshadowing and looking back, okay? When they were going over ways to kill Monster, they thought about a hammer, stoning, drowning, and pushing him off a building. When Ezekiel came chasing after them, he was wielding a hammer. When he was about to give Racine, Anaya distracted him by throwing rocks at him. Stoning. In fact, almost everyone got stoned in one way or another because the rock in a sock was definitely a supporting character. When Anaya stabbed Dev to stop him from choking Racine, he fell backwards into the pool and drowned. When Racine suggested pushing him off a building, Anaya said, what if he grabs one of us on the way down? And that's exactly what he did. He was in the tub burning up, and before they got a chance to walk off into the sunset, he grabbed Racine and dragged Racine into his personal hellfire right along with him. Passion point, you know the saying, thoughts become things, so choose the good ones. Your words have power, whether in thought or spoken. So be mindful of what you're thinking and what you're saying, because when they come to life in front of your eyes, that's not by coincidence, passionates. That's intention and energy in motion. Just because everything you've said or every expression you've casually used colloquially hasn't had the exact implication yet, doesn't mean that it never could or never will. When they were driving and Anaya was trying to rationalize killing this man, Racine tried to appeal to her by saying, ain't we been killed, Naya? That's the same kind of manipulation tactic Monster used on her, justifying why he never came back for them. Passion point. Not seeing the monster you're becoming doesn't mean you're not becoming a monster. The average person doesn't have pattern recognition when it comes to themselves, and especially when it comes to problematic patterns. It's like how other people notice your weight changes before you do, and even if you do see it, it doesn't always seem as stark to you as it does to others. Monster was a psychopath. Racine was a sociopath. Anaya was the goodness that eluded Monster that justified Racine's monstrous tendencies. But in that last aerial shot, I feel like that angle showed that there was a touch of Monster in her that was just untapped. And y'all, I could really say a lot more, but we've been here for a minute. So I'm going to get out this chair and I'm going to let you do the same. If you didn't see it, I think that for all my opining, there's still so much more you can get from it. And if you did see it, you should see it again. Okay? The cast did a stellar job. Everybody did their thing incredibly. If you have been through any of the experiences in this movie, being burned severely, being involved with someone violent, even holding a candle for someone that everyone else sees as problematic, but you just can't shake them, you will see yourself in this movie. And the people who have made you feel invisible or who have actively chosen blindness to your reality will have to see you too. I promised I wasn't going to say any more. So that's it, and that's all, passionates. You get you right, Guru is signing off. Y'all go forth. Be great, be filled with bliss, be armed and empowered with knowledge. When life puts a mirror in front of you, don't turn your head because the reflection makes you uncomfortable. Face it and fix it. And in all things, be passionate. See you later.